Ethan Carter never thought he would see her again. It had been 15 years since high school, since the days when he used to steal glances at Lena Harrington across the classroom, pretending not to notice the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. She was his first crush, the girl who made his teenage heart race. But life had taken them in different directions. After graduation, Lena had disappeared. No social media, no updates, nothing. It was as if she had vanished. And then she appeared. It happened on a crisp autumn afternoon in New York. Ethan was in line at a small coffee shop, waiting for his usual black coffee, when a familiar voice behind him made his pulse stop cold. "Ethan?" He turned, and there she was, Lena Harrington. She looked exactly the same, yet somehow different, still effortlessly beautiful with those piercing green eyes and soft auburn hair. But there was something off. A sadness in her smile, a hesitation in her posture. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she laughed softly, breaking the tension. "I can't believe it's really you," she said, her voice carrying both warmth and something else, something unspoken. Ethan found his voice. "Lena, wow, this is crazy." She nodded, glancing at the barista as if suddenly remembering they were in a public space. "Yeah, do you mind if I join you?" He hesitated for just a second before nodding. "Of course." They took their coffees to a small table in the corner. For a while, the conversation was light, reminiscing about old times, the embarrassing moments of high school, the teachers they used to complain about. Ethan couldn't stop staring at her, trying to reconcile the girl from his memories with the woman sitting in front of him. But the more they talked, the clearer it became that Lena was hiding something. Her eyes darted away when he asked about her life after high school. Her answers were vague, as if she were carefully choosing which pieces to reveal. She mentioned traveling, moving around, but there were gaps, large gaps. Finally, Ethan decided to ask directly, "Lena, you just disappeared after graduation. No one knew where you went. What happened?" She froze, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. But then, she took a slow breath and forced a smile. "It's complicated." Ethan frowned. "Lena, if something happened—" "It's nothing," she cut him off quickly. "I just had to leave, that's all." He didn't believe her, but before he could press further, she glanced at the time on her phone and cursed under her breath. "I have to go." "Wait, Lena." She stood abruptly, grabbing her bag. "It was really good seeing you, Ethan." And just like that, she was gone. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair across from him. Something wasn't right. Lena was hiding something big, and he was going to find out what. Ethan couldn't shake the uneasy feeling Lena had left him with. He'd spent years wondering what had happened to her, and now that she had finally reappeared, she was just as much of a mystery as ever. There was something in her eyes that haunted him. Fear, maybe? Regret? Whatever it was, he wasn't going to let it go. For days, he found himself replaying their conversation in his head, dissecting every word, every pause, every moment she hesitated before answering his questions. He knew people moved on after high school, that life took them in unexpected directions. But Lena hadn't just moved on. She had vanished. And now, even though she had resurfaced, she was clearly still running from something. He couldn't let it go. Ethan had built a successful career in investigative journalism, exposing corruption, unraveling scandals, finding the truth buried beneath lies. His instinct screamed that Lena's story wasn't just a case of lost connection, it was something deeper, and he was going to find out what. It started with a simple search. He typed Lena Harrington into Google, expecting at least a LinkedIn profile, maybe an article or two if she had been involved in anything newsworthy. But what he found instead was nothing. No social media, no work history, no mentions of her name anywhere. It was like she had never existed. That was odd. He widened the search, looking into old yearbooks, past school records. There was no sign of her after high school. Ethan frowned. People don't just erase themselves unless they have to. The more he searched, the more questions arose. And then he found something, an old news article buried deep in the archives. The headline sent a chill down his spine. Mysterious disappearance. Local girl's father found dead. Daughter missing. The article was 15 years old, and the missing girl? Lena Harrington. Ethan's heart pounded as he read. The report was vague, stating that Lena's father, Richard Harrington, had been found dead in their family home under unclear circumstances. Authorities had initially suspected foul play, but no evidence was ever found linking anyone to the crime. What made it more chilling was that Lena, just 17 at the time, had vanished the same night. The police had searched for her, but after months of no leads, the case had gone cold. And now, 15 years later, she had reappeared in a coffee shop in New York as if nothing had happened. Ethan's blood ran cold. What the hell had Lena been hiding? And more importantly, why had she come back now? Ethan knew he was diving into something dangerous. If Lena had spent 15 years in hiding, she had a reason. And if she was back, it meant something, or someone, had forced her to return. But he couldn't stop. He had to know the truth. And the only person who could give him answers? Lena herself. He needed to find her. Before it was too late. Ethan knew that finding Lena again wouldn't be easy, but he wasn't going to stop. She had been hiding for 15 years, and the way she had left their coffee shop meeting so abruptly only confirmed that she was still running from something or someone. The article about her father's mysterious death haunted him. He couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, Lena hadn't just disappeared. Maybe she had been forced to. But by whom? And why? He started with the only lead he had, the coffee shop where they had met. He spent hours there over the next few days, hoping she would return, but she never did. He asked the barista if she was a regular, but the girl just shook her head. "I've only seen her that one time," she said, shrugging. "Sorry." It was like she had come back just long enough to be seen, and then vanished again. Ethan's frustration grew, but he wasn't out of options. He still had connections from his journalism career, people who could dig up information the average person couldn't. He reached out to an old friend who worked in private investigations. "I need to find someone," Ethan said over the phone. No social media, no digital footprint, but she was in the city a few days ago. "What's her name?" the investigator asked. "Lena Harrington." There was a pause. Then a sharp inhale. "Ethan, are you sure you want to get involved with her?" Ethan's grip tightened on his phone. "Why? What do you know?" "I don't know much, but I know her name isn't one you want to be looking into. Word is, she's connected to some dangerous people." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "Dangerous how?" His friend hesitated. "I don't have details, but if she's resurfaced after all this time, it's not by choice. Be careful, man. Some people don't want her found." Ethan hung up, his mind racing. Lena was in danger. Maybe she had been all along. And if she had resurfaced, it wasn't because she wanted to. It was because she had to. That night, he barely slept. His mind kept going back to that brief moment in the coffee shop. The way she had looked over her shoulder, the way her smile had faltered when he asked about her past. She had wanted to tell him something, he was sure of it. But something, or someone, had stopped her. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. If Lena wasn't going to come to him, he would go to her. He started digging into records, looking for any trace of her. Finally, after hours of searching, he found something, an address. It wasn't much, just a small apartment listed under a different name, but he recognized the photo of the building. It was in Brooklyn, not far from where they had met. His heart pounded as he grabbed his keys. He had found her, but he wasn't the only one. As he pulled up near the apartment, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A black SUV was parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running, waiting. Ethan's instincts screamed at him. He wasn't just chasing shadows anymore. He had stepped into something much, much bigger. Ethan kept his eyes on the black SUV as he sat in his car, parked a safe distance away from Lena's building. The vehicle was too polished, too well placed to be a coincidence. Someone was watching her. But who and why? His mind raced with possibilities. Was it law enforcement? A private investigator? Or worse, someone connected to the reason she had disappeared in the first place? He needed answers. Keeping his movements casual, he got out of his car and crossed the street. The SUV didn't move, but he could feel eyes on him. Whoever they were patient, professional. He didn't have time to dwell on it. He had to get to Lena. The building was old but well-maintained, the kind of place where people minded their own business. He scanned the mailboxes in the lobby. No name listed under Harrington. She was still hiding. Smart. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his pulse pounding as he reached the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. He hesitated for only a second before knocking. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. His gut told him she was in there. "Lena, it's me, Ethan." He kept his voice low but urgent. Silence. Then, just when he was about to knock again, the door cracked open an inch. A single green eye peeked through, wide, afraid. "Ethan." Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's me," he said, keeping his hands visible so she wouldn't think he was a threat. "Lena, I need to talk to you." She hesitated, glancing past him as if checking the hallway. Then, with a quick motion, she unlocked the door and pulled him inside, shutting it behind him. The apartment was small, sparsely furnished. Packed boxes lined the walls, as if she was preparing to leave. Again. "You shouldn't be here," she said, crossing her arms. Ethan ignored that. "Lena, what's going on? Who are you running from?" She flinched at the question but didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the window, peeking through the curtain. He didn't miss the way her hands trembled. "There's a black SUV parked outside," he said carefully. "They've been watching your building. Do you know who they are?" Lena stiffened. That was all the confirmation he needed. "Lena, talk to me." She turned to face him, and for a moment he saw the war in her eyes. Then, finally, she exhaled shakily. "I never meant to come back," she admitted, "but I had no choice." Ethan took a step closer. "Why?" She swallowed hard, then said the words that sent a chill down his spine. "Because my father's killer just found me." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "Your father's killer?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lena, what are you saying?" She looked away, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold her body together. "I've been running for years, Ethan. I thought I was safe. But then, a few weeks ago, I got a message. No name, no details, just a simple sentence." She closed her eyes as if trying to erase the memory. "I know where you are." Ethan's stomach tightened. "And you think it's him?" Lena nodded slowly. "I don't just think, I know." She started pacing, her movements restless, her breath shallow. "After my father was killed, I was supposed to be next. I overheard them talking, Ethan. I heard them say my name. I didn't wait to find out what they wanted. I ran. I've been running ever since. Different names, different cities, never staying in one place too long." She let out a humorless laugh. "And yet, here I am." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Why would they come after you? What did your father do?" She hesitated, biting her lip, then finally spoke. "He was into something dangerous. At first, I didn't know what, but over the years, I've pieced things together. My father was working with people he shouldn't have been. People with power, money, men who could make someone disappear without a trace." Her voice wavered. "I think he wanted out, and they didn't like that." Ethan's mind raced. "And they killed him for it." Lena nodded. "And I was next. I don't know why, Ethan, I swear. Maybe he told me something I wasn't supposed to know. Maybe they just didn't want to take any chances." She turned to him, desperation in her eyes. I thought I was safe. I've spent 15 years looking over my shoulder, and now it's happening all over again. Ethan moved closer. We need to go to the police. She let out a bitter laugh. You think I haven't tried? There's no proof, Ethan. No case. No one believes a girl who vanished when she was 17. Her hands balled into fists. To them, I was a runaway, a scared little girl with too many stories. Ethan's jaw clenched. This wasn't just some mystery, this was a cover-up. Whoever killed Lena's father had power. Enough to bury the truth. Enough to chase her for 15 years, and now she had nowhere left to run. Ethan took a deep breath. Then we find the proof. We find out who killed your father, and we stop them before they can get to you. Lena shook her head. You don't understand, Ethan. These people, they don't leave loose ends, and now that you're involved... A sudden noise cut through the air, a car door slamming. Ethan turned toward the window just in time to see the black SUV's doors open. Men in suits stepped out, and they were coming straight for the building. Lena's breath hitched. Ethan moved fast, grabbing her wrist and pulling her away from the window. We have to go, now. She didn't argue. She just nodded, her face pale, fear flashing in her eyes. Ethan's mind worked in overdrive. They had maybe a minute before those men were at her door. He scanned the apartment, looking for another way out. The fire escape. He rushed to the window, yanked it open, and glanced down. It was a 3-story drop, but the ladder was just within reach. Come on! Lena hesitated for only a second before climbing out, gripping the rusted metal as she moved quickly down the ladder. Ethan followed, his heart pounding in his ears. Just as he hit the second rung, he heard it. A loud bang. The front door. They had broken in. Voices shouted inside the apartment. They were too late. Lena was already on the ground, waiting for him. Ethan jumped the last few feet, landing hard, grabbing her hand. Go! They ran through the alley, their footsteps echoing in the empty streets. Ethan led them toward his car, parked a block away. He yanked open the passenger door. Get in! She barely had time to buckle her seatbelt before he sped off. In the rearview mirror, the men were spilling out of the building, shouting into phones. The black SUV roared to life. They were being chased. Lena's breath came in quick gasps. They're not going to stop. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. Neither am I. His mind was already forming a plan. They needed a safe place, someone who could help, and Ethan knew exactly who to call. He pressed a number on his phone, keeping his eyes on the road. The call was answered on the first ring. Ethan, I need a favor, he said, glancing at Lena. A big one. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. Where are you? Ethan gave the location, then hung up. He looked at Lena. We're going to end this. She swallowed hard. And if we can't? Ethan met her gaze. Then we stop running. Lena exhaled, nodding slowly. For the first time in 15 years, she wasn't running alone. And that changed everything.